Some stories begin with love. Some begin with loss. And some begin the moment everything falls apart. This is Scarlett After Dark. Scarlett After Dark.
I'm Scarlett Stone. This is The Unraveling, a story about a secret affair, a dissolving marriage, and what it cost to want the wrong man. Let's get into it. Chapter 20, The Last Family Vacation. That summer, we went back to the Florida Keys. A different house this time. Different layout, different view from the bedroom window, but the same impossible aqua water spreading out in front of us every morning like it had been waiting. Me, the kids, James, Coco. The same ritual of settling in, unpacking, claiming the beach like it was ours. But something had shifted in the year since the first trip. The ease of it felt different now, more deliberate, more like something we were performing for each other than something we were actually feeling. James doted on me at every turn. He always had these past few years, trying hard in that particular way of a man who can feel something slipping and is doing everything right except the one thing that would actually matter. The truth was simpler and more damning than anything I could dress up. James had given up. Not recently, gradually, over years, so slowly I'd almost convinced myself it was normal. He hadn't worked in a long time, hadn't pushed, hadn't hustled, hadn't done anything meaningful to get us out of the hole we were in. While I was building Goddess from scratch, applying for jobs, trying to keep the lights on and the kids fed and the life moving, he sat in his chair, played games on his phone, floated around Charleston with people half his age. We had borrowed money from his mother at this point, something he should have asked for years earlier, something that might have prevented the move that uprooted our kids mid-year, disrupted everything, cost everyone something they couldn't get back. But he hadn't wanted to appear vulnerable. He had waited until there was no other choice, and even then it wasn't him getting off his ass. It was just a different way of sitting still. What would our old age look like? A man who couldn't provide, who wouldn't push, whose answer to every difficulty was to wait it out and hope someone else solved it. I had spent 20+ years carrying this, and I was tired. Not angry, tired. And I knew, in the specific way you know things you've been avoiding for a decade, that if I stayed, I would resent him. The resentment was already there, quiet and growing. It wasn't fair to him, and it wasn't fair to me. I had been circling this decision for over a decade. I was done circling. One afternoon, Colin and I rented boards and went surfing. Just the two of us, paddling out together into that aqua water, him patient and easy, and every time a wave took us both down. He was good at it in the way that young men are good at physical things. Naturally, without effort, his body finding the wave before his mind caught up. I was less graceful and considerably more entertained by my own failure. We were out there for hours, the sun moving overhead, the water warm and forgiving, and it was one of those afternoons that feels like it exists slightly outside of normal time. Just my son and the ocean, and the particular joy of doing something badly together and not caring at all. That evening, we cooked on the beach. The kids tried to start the fire, a production, all of us watching Colin and Penelope crouch over the wood with the focused intensity of people who have seen this done on television and are reasonably confident they can replicate it. They could not immediately. There was a lot of commentary, a little smoke, several false starts, and eventually a fire that we all celebrated as though they had invented it. I stood back with my wine and took pictures, their faces in the firelight, Coco weaving between everyone's legs looking for dropped food, James laughing at something Colin said. They were happy, genuinely uncomplicated happy, in the way that kids are happy when they're fed and warm and together and not being asked to carry anything heavy. I took the pictures and held the wine and felt the warmth of it all and tried to stay inside it. That night, in the dark of the bedroom we were sharing this time, James's hands started wandering the way they always did, slowly, tentatively, waiting to see if I'd stop him. I didn't. He kept going, patient and persistent the way he always was, and I let him, because he had always been a generous lover. That was always true of James, whatever else wasn't. He always made sure I was satisfied first. He went down on me, starting from behind, slow and deliberate, making sure I was taken care of before anything else. That was him. That had always been him. Generous in bed in a way David never quite managed. David, who made me wetter than anyone ever had, and still somehow never got me all the way there. And yet, I longed for David. I know how sick that sounds. I was sick. James could never give me what I longed for. Not because he wasn't trying, because he was never the one I wanted to rip the clothes off of. Never the one I wanted to look in the eyes and say, "You're mine." There was no kissing. There hadn't been for years, and I missed kissing so much it had become a physical ache. The kissing you only do with someone you're desperate for. We had never had that, not once in our entire marriage. By the time he humped against my back twice and finished before he'd even gotten inside me, I was already somewhere else entirely. "Did you just come?" "Yeah, sorry, I guess it's been a while." He was embarrassed. I could feel it in the stillness of him. I told him it was okay, not in the way that meant everything was fine, but in the way that meant I wasn't going to make it worse. I got up, went to the bathroom, wet a washcloth with warm water, came back. Cleaned him up the way I always did after sex. The small ritual of it, the tenderness that had nothing to do with passion and everything to do with care. Tossed the cloth in the bin, got back into bed. He fell asleep. I lay there in the dark, listening to the water outside, and said nothing to the ceiling. The next morning I was back on the beach early, coffee in hand, a book open in my lap. A novel about an affair. How suiting. I wasn't sure if the universe had a sense of humor or just a very specific agenda. I read and watched the water and occasionally looked up at my kids frolicking in the waves, Coco sprinting in and out of the surf beside them, the whole scene so perfectly itself that it almost hurt to look at. James came down from the house at some point with lunch, made it, carried it down, set it out on the blanket the way he always did when he was trying, which was always down here, which was the problem. And I sat there with my affair novel and my coffee going cold and my kids laughing in the water and let myself feel it, really feel it, for the first time without flinching away. I was going to blow up my family. Not might, was. The legal consultations had already started, the quiet planning, the life I was already designing on the other side of this one. And here they were, my kids, happy and laughing and not knowing. Still a family, still whole, still in the last of the before. It made me feel horrible. I want to say that clearly and without softening it. Selfish, genuinely selfish, in a way that sat heavily on my chest in that morning light. What I was about to do was going to put them through something. There was no version of it that didn't, and I was going to do it anyway. Because my life is mine, not anyone else's, mine. And I had spent so many years living it for other people, around other people, in service of what other people needed from me, that I had almost forgotten what it felt like to ask what I needed. I needed more. Something bigger, something realer, something that didn't feel like going through the motions of a life I had outgrown. I hoped it was coming. I believed, somewhere underneath all the fear and the guilt and the uncertainty, that it was. But not before the turmoil. Not before the blowing up. Not before watching the faces of the people I loved most change when I told them the truth. I put the book down, watched James hand Penelope a sandwich, and laugh at something she said. Watched Colin wade out into the water with Coco trotting faithfully behind him. Took a picture. Filed it away somewhere inside me where I keep the things I know I'll need later. I thought about what I actually wanted. Not contentment. I had tried that, had given it 20+ years, and it hadn't been enough even when it was working. I wanted the real thing. The one where you look into the eyes of another person and know, that's my person. The one you want to rip the clothes off of. The one you want to share poetry with. The one you want to spend the rest of your life being fully, unapologetically alive with. I had never looked at James that way, not once. I had looked at David that way the moment I sat down across from him at that candlelit table over a burger and 2 margaritas. And I had never fully stopped. I was trying my best to, but trying and done are 2 very different things. And I wasn't done yet, not really, no matter how many goodbyes I wrote or promises I made to myself in the dark. The kids would be up for hours still. There would be more beach and more sun and more of all of it, beautiful and real and mine, every bit of it mine. And underneath it all, quiet and certain and already decided, the thing that would be coming next. Chapter 21, My Troubled Teenage Daughter. Both of my kids were seniors that year, Colin in college, Penelope in high school, which should have felt like a milestone worth savoring, and mostly felt like trying to keep 2 plates spinning while the floor moved underneath me. James was in and out. Charleston was home now, mostly, but he'd appear when it suited him. A long weekend here, a week there, the particular presence of a man who got to choose when to show up and therefore always showed up at his best. When Penelope and I would clash, he'd materialize like a rescue operation, calm, reasonable, the good cop who never had to do the unglamorous daily work of actually parenting a difficult teenager because he wasn't there for any of it. She adored him for this. Of course she did. He was safe in the way that people are safe when they never have to say no. Living with Penelope that year was mostly good. I want to say that first because it's true and because it's easy to lose in what comes next. 80% of the time, we were genuinely good, laughing in the car, singing along to the same songs, cooking together, the easy companionship of 2 people who actually liked each other underneath everything. She was funny and sharp and had her mother's instincts about people, even when she didn't want to admit it. I tried to praise her at every turn. I tried to show up the way I wished someone had shown up for me. The other 20% was something else entirely. Penelope could be a lot. There were a few incidents that I still think about. The first was the boy. I found out she'd lost her virginity when the doorbell rang one afternoon while I was home alone. I opened the front door to a heavy-set kid with tiny glasses and an unkempt, scruffy beard, looking sloppy in the way of someone who had stopped paying attention to themselves. He was holding a bag of Penelope's things and a note he'd written for her. The word vomit started almost immediately. He'd been seeing my daughter. They'd had sex. She had found out he slept with someone else and ended it, and he was devastated. And could I please help him get her back? He kept inching forward, toward the door, the way people do when they want to be invited in. I held my ground, kept him close to the open doorway, one hand near the frame. He never crossed the threshold. There was something off about him. Not just the oversharing, not just the audacity of standing on a stranger's doorstep asking her to intercede in his love life, but something deeper and harder to name. Something that made me think he might genuinely need help, the professional kind, more than he needed my daughter back. Eventually, he left. I almost felt sorry for him. Almost. When Penelope got home, I gave her the bag and the note and told her I had questions if she ever wanted to talk. I didn't want to pry. She was 18. If she wanted to tell me what was going on, she would, in her own time. She took the bag, went quiet in that particular way of hers, not processing, just sealing, and went to her room and closed the door. She never brought it up. She held it in the way she held everything in, the boy, the breakup, whatever had happened between them. It was a pattern I was starting to notice with her, and her friendships generally. Friends had come and gone over the years, relationships that ended badly, and in Penelope's accounting, it was always the other person's fault. Always. I knew it takes two. I was starting to see it clearly even as I kept showing up, kept being supportive, kept praising her at every turn because that's what you do. You keep showing up. She is her father's daughter in certain ways. Avoidant, reluctant to process anything out loud, allergic to accountability. The arrogance that was really insecurity displayed outward as attitude so no one could see the wound underneath. The house was always a mess on her side of it. Period pads on the floor, bathroom destroyed, brand new bedding stained within weeks. The dog rarely walked, dishes half-washed at best. She had wrecked her own car and never apologized for it, not once, and borrowed mine constantly, leaving it full of fast food bags and smelling of weed she'd promised not to smoke in it. I'd find her paraphernalia on the porch, out in the open, like it didn't occur to her that other people lived there too. I was doing all of this alone. James in Charleston, Colin at school, me cleaning up after a teenager day after day while trying to hold my own life together. There were moments, I'm not proud of them, when it became too much and I'd say it, go live with your dad. I meant it in those moments, and I regret saying it, and I said it more than once. The second incident was the car. One afternoon, I was out with a friend, someone I hadn't seen in years, a long overdue lunch I had been looking forward to for weeks. I had my car. Penelope needed to get to work and wanted it. I asked if she could get a ride. I was with a friend, I explained. I hadn't seen her in years. My phone started blowing up. Get your fucking ass back to the house now. Bitch, loser. Message after message, escalating in a way that made my stomach drop. I sat across from my friend and watched my phone light up and felt something I can only describe as fear. The specific, cold fear of not knowing what you're going to come home to. I came home to the front door bashed in. She had taken something to it. I never found out exactly what. And the door frame was splintered, the door itself damaged in a way that made clear how much force had been behind it. She was at work when I got home. The house was quiet. I knew she'd be pissed when she got back. She was good at holding grudges, at arriving home with the anger still fully loaded. That night, I locked my bedroom door. I slept with a knife on the nightstand. I want to sit with that for a moment. 56 years old, in a house I shared with my daughter, a knife on the nightstand. That's where we had gotten. James arrived the next day. He walked in and absorbed the situation with the calm of someone who hadn't been there for any of it and could therefore afford to be calm. He talked to her. She listened to him the way she never listened to me, openly, without the walls up, without the arsenal. He had that effect on her. He always had. He was the parent she got to choose, the one who showed up without the daily friction of actually living together. I stood in the hallway and watched and said nothing. The third incident was the word itself. I had asked her to help with the garbage, the dishes, the dog. Not dramatically, not with my father's anger. Carefully, gently, the way I had trained myself to ask because I knew how criticism had landed on me growing up, and I didn't want to do that to her. She didn't like being told what to do. She never had. And so she aimed. She called me a loser. At 56 years old, my daughter called me a loser, and my entire childhood came rushing back in one cold wave. My father's voice, only this time coming out of someone I had made and raised and loved with everything I had. She knew about the wounds that man had given me. She knew, and she aimed there anyway. James defended me when he was there to see it. He could see how unruly she'd become, how pointed the cruelty was. But he wasn't there most of the time. Most of the time, it was just the two of us in that house, picking our way through the minefield of her moods. I tried to understand it. I'm still trying. She was lashing out, hurting in ways she didn't have language for, processing a divorce that had been declared years ago and never fully resolved, living with a mother who was barely holding it together while her father came and went like a guest star in his own family's life. She framed her cruelty as concern. "What are you going to do when we move, Mom? What's your plan?" But underneath the concern was something harder and more pointed. She was hurting. Hurting I had caused, at least in part. That's the only explanation that makes any sense, because otherwise, why be so cruel? Why use the exact words designed to wound the deepest? I was the one who stayed. I need to say that clearly, for the record. I was the one who showed up every day, who got her through high school, who managed the logistics of her life while her father made his own choices about where to be. I was the one who was there. And still. And still. But I was also the one who was leaving. Not her, never her. The life that had stopped fitting. The woman who had spent decades absorbing other people's pain and calling it love. I was done absorbing. I was choosing myself now, finally, even if nobody in that house was ready to celebrate it yet. Maybe they would be, eventually. I had to believe that. New chapters of The Unraveling drop every Monday. We all have secrets. Some we never If you have a story that lives in the dark, obsession, betrayal, heartbreak, desire, reinvention, I want to hear it. Send me an email at lipservice68@gmail.com or find me on YouTube at Scarlett After Dark Official. Your secrets are safe with me. Let's tell your story.